Hey friends, John here with the Paddles Up experiment again. This is day 4, and I really appreciate you chiming in and your comments and just the things that you encourage me with is such an encouragement because look, it's about living your life out loud now and in the vulnerability and transparency, and it's always been that way. But I think we've lived in a world where there's been so much fakery and having to put on a mask and all that that we've been conditioned to believe that that's what people want and that's what they need when it couldn't be further from the truth, right? So if you're new to this and you're just chiming in on the day 4, what I'm doing is just really sharing my journey of what it means to really come out of this head space, out of this egoic space, and then live more heart-centered. And as you know, that's a process that could take an entire lifetime and beyond, and that's okay because we're eternal beings. And what are we in a rush for anyway? I think the most important thing that we could be known for is to learn to love ourselves and others. And it's as simple as that. We make it complicated through conditioning. We make it complicated through thinking that we have to have some massive, big, huge revelation that sells to the masses, and we have to be somebody in the eyes of men. And look how that's worked out for us, right? That's why structures are crumbling. So what's interesting about the heart-centered journey is that I've come to realize that everything in life is to get us to see and to live that very thing, everything. From our childhood all the way up to what we're going through. If we don't deflect and blame, but we look at it all as tools and mechanisms and unveilings and learning processes in our lives so that we can see where we're at in that matrix, where we're at in that scope, where we're at in that growth cycle or process. And sometimes that can be very brutal. But if we're brutally honest, then we can come before God, we can come before man, our fellow man, and say, hey, you know what? I can't blame anybody else for any of this. It has to be that I look at myself in the mirror. I believe that's what COVID was all about, was we a lot of us missed the boat on that, meaning that when something hits the planet to that magnitude, whether you believe it was engineered or whatever, the point is it shut down the world. And when that kind of thing takes place and you're isolated, do you remember that? Yeah, I know you do. You're isolated and you can't be around the routines and the cycles that you and I have been used to, especially those that attend religious organizations or church. You're like, oh, something's keeping me away from other people, and that is a problem. And so I'm going to deflect and blame it on evil, blame it on this or that. And some of that could very well be true because we know that COVID wasn't sent from heaven, right? However, when we deflect and we blame anything or anyone, what happens is we begin to take the attention off that which is being highlighted from heaven. And what is that? That's a time to sit, because you're forced to now, time to sit and look in the mirror, so to speak, and say, okay, what is going on internally inside of me? What is happening? Where's my life at, What am I learning through this? How can I become a better version of me? How can I grow? How can I expand, into love and being love for others? And so when we see this kind of stuff happening and we don't pay attention and have self-awareness of what's going on internally, then we're going to look at situations and circumstances and lay blame. And so what the question for you would be, and myself would be, what does any given day look like when it comes to this very arena of self-awareness? Because I can tell you this: life is challenging enough, trying to blame others. And then when we look at ourselves and then we begin to surrender to heart-centeredness, then we begin to say, okay, that's what this is really about. And then it becomes a joy. It really does. It may be difficult and challenging at first when you see an area in your life that needs to be surrendered. But there's something about that love energy and the grace energy and the Spirit of God that says, hey, here's grace, enough grace to overcome this. So just sit with it and love that part of you that is begging for help, begging to be healed. Sit with it, let it pass, send love to it and let it pass. Because that dark energy or that feeling that comes up that we don't like will in fact pass if we don't grab for the next addiction. Then we just have, if we do, it's human, right? Sometimes, but then we'll just have to revisit that spot again, or that dark energy, or that darkness within us, and say, and then it presents itself and says, okay, you didn't pay attention to me, so I'm going to have to come back around again. And what I mean by dark energy is that energy that just hasn't had the light shown on it yet, and we keep avoiding it. That part of us that we want to keep avoiding. So for me today, it was interesting. You see the title, it's kind of interesting. The gym insecurities is part of it. That was part of the day. And it's not over yet. But the gym insecurities. So my wife and I go to the gym almost every morning. We try to anyway. We sometimes take a day or two off. But we go first thing in the morning because we found that that's where the most energy is for us. And if we wait till the end of the day, then you've already expensed a lot of energy, and then it's kind of tough working out. Those of you that go a lot, you understand that. And maybe you're the opposite. That's fine. But for us, it's the energy's there in the morning. So we get up, we go early. Today was noticeably different for me in the fact that my insecurities were coming up. And it sometimes happens, but not as intense as it was today. And I think it's all because I am surrendering those areas of my life that are the insecure areas, and really meaning it this time. And it's just time to, it's just there in my face. And so I'm over there trying to do squats. It was leg day today, so I'm over there trying to do squats, and just wasn't working. My lower back was hurting, and it was one of those things where I looked in the mirror and I'm looking at my legs and I'm like, pointing out all the flaws, like they're too skinny. And my wife always says, what are you talking about? No, they're not. Anyway, we all have our insecurities, right? So then I started feeling more weak. Have you ever done that? You're looking at something in the mirror and you're like, oh man, now I don't want to do it because what's the point, kind of thing, But I pushed through it. And then I'd see somebody else over across the gym is way more in shape and way more fit than I am. So then that came up. Then I started comparing, and all these old feelings started coming up, right? And then I'm just like, I just feel like a blob. and then I realized, I'm going, wait a minute. This is coming up because, yes, this part of me wants to be seen and loved on. My legs want to be loved on. The flab and the blub wants to be loved on. And so instead of hating that part of me or hating on it, then let's try love. Let's try sending love, let's try sending love. And then I let it dissipate and let it pass. It took it took about 10, 15 minutes as I'm walking around trying to feel sorry for myself, or compare and compete and all that kind of garbage. Then I'm going, okay, that passed. Now I feel better. I'm having good energy come in now. There's grace there. And then that energy came in and dispensed it. And I go, okay, you know what? The still small voice came in. I felt like God was whispering to my heart saying, well, at least you made it to the gym. At least you're here, right? And I said, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm here. And I started looking around at all the people that weren't in shape, or what you would call not in shape, and then the ones that were in shape. And I was like, you know what? Everybody chose to be here this morning. They didn't have to, but that's a small win, just showing up. So remember in my last video, I talked about small wins. Celebrate the small wins. And when we do that, it brings in the light into those dark, insecure areas, and then it begins to dispense them. So it's kind of fascinating what was happening today with that. That was one area. Another was just really watching as my ego is being dismantled as it comes to leadership. And that's going to take another video, but I want to just touch on this for a minute. Is sometimes when we're in a leadership role, we take on a responsibility thinking that we have to be responsible for everyone else around us. Now, in a business or corporation, if you're a leader there, you understand that there is a fiscal responsibility and a human resources responsibility of managing humans. However, when we try to position that hierarchy mentality in such a way that says, excuse me, you need to listen to me, or there'll be, consequences. And not that I say that, but sometimes I think that. Excuse me. And that's just the ego trying to bark and make itself feel important, because if somebody's not listening, you're like, after all, I am the manager or the director here. And when they don't, wow, excuse me. When they don't, then there could be a schism in the matrix of that organization, because there are responsibilities. But when we think too highly of ourselves or too important, and we try to force something, or we try to exude or exert a little leadership that may be a little too firm or something, then it just serves to come back on us in a way that says, you know what, ego's being dissolved here, so to speak. And so you're aware that the hierarchy within you is being dismantled, so that heart-centeredness can be seen and shown. And in the energy of that, it goes ahead and takes care of the issue at hand. It's just amazing how that works. So a lot more to share on that. But yeah, those are a couple things I've been going through today, of just being self-aware and realizing that this is what's happening. And it's amazing. It's awesome. It's awesome to my inner man, inner world. And it's okay that if the ego barks back or squirms a little bit, because it's being loved on. And that's what really is necessary. So thanks for chiming in. I'm going to drink some more water. And we'll see you on the next one. Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.